You argue that this might have been a time, or we might be at a time now, where we need to really rethink what are American interests in the region. They've been in place for many decades. Do we really need to maintain them in the same way that we have maintained them? Do you have any sense that we're getting closer to that conversation, or have we missed that opportunity?
Let me put it this way. I'm going to say something very controversial. I think what President Trump said in Riyadh in May about the era of the United States telling people how to live, how to arrange their societies, and that they should live with some approximation of the way we live, is over. I don't think that that was necessarily a bad thing. Not because I'm opposed to democracy, not because I support authoritarians, but because after this episode, after it's become clear that we have very, very little ability to alter the politics in these countries, that it would be harmful to American interests to continue to do those kinds of things. So now where I differ from the president, and of course it's not the only thing that I differ from the president, is that his gutting of the foreign affairs budget. You talked about USAID and these democracy and governance programs, and we've had long conversations with this over many years. And my view is that we should get back to the basics, both in our kind of broadly thinking about the Middle East, and when we think about the missions of organizations like USAID. So to me, Abdel Fattah Sisi, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, even Beji Sepsi, the alleged democratic leader of Tunisia, aren't much interested in democracy and good governance programs. The Moroccans, the Jordanians, they're very good at writing these grant applications and extracting this reform-minded money, but has it really changed things? Maybe it's a 50-year project, and I'm being unfair. But it seems to me that if we go back to what USAID used to do, which is actual development work, rural electrification, potable water, public health, education, that
international exchanges.
Right. Those kinds of things, I think, over a longer period of time, are more helpful to your average person in the Middle East than, good governance conferences with Egyptian governors at the Four Seasons Nile Plaza. Because if you know anything about Egyptian governors, they're retired military officers or police officers that have a very different view of what good governance is than what we believe to be good governance. And so it's sort of like we're wasting money when we could be contributing to the health, wealth, and education of populations that may, over a long period of time, produce fundamental kind of change. Now, what should we then do in the Middle East? Again, I talk about going back to basics, about what is important and why, and how do we get there. It strikes me that after this episode, after Operation Desert Storm, and this kind of America striding the world alone, basically, and then the kind of post 9/11 environment where we determine that what goes on inside of these countries so uniquely produces terrorists, where I don't think that that is the case. I think all the research would suggest that it's really a wash. We don't know. And that just remaking societies hasn't really worked. And so that, what is it that's important to the United States in the Middle East? Basically three things. The free flow of energy resources out of the region, helping to ensure Israeli security, making sure no other country dominates the region other than the United States. You can add counterproliferation and counterterrorism to those things as well, but I think those three big ones are the things. Now maybe they're not as important as they once were, and maybe it deserves a national debate, a national conversation about whether those are really our goals. I have my doubts, though, that in our current situation of political dysfunction, that we can have a productive national conversation about what's important to us. So the default is what we have been doing over
for a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.